Hello and welcome to Grid Tonight. My name is Joe Samdiego. Today we'll be talking a little bit about Monaco. No Monaco Grand Prix in 2020, but 2021 we're going to have a unique change that could help this guy out if he returns back to Formula One. Of course, that is Fernando Alonso. Of course, today we'll also be previewing the Darlington race tonight that is scheduled to take place. We'll see how that goes, depending on what weather does, and more motorsports news right here on Grid tonight. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Grid Tonight. My name is Joe, and I'm joined today with Kobe Lambeth from the podiumfinish.net. Kobe, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great, Joe. It's kind of wet down here in North Carolina and also South Carolina as well in the Darlington area. So yeah, although it's wet out here, I'm glad to be on here tonight and ready to talk some great racing news with you.
Well, we're super excited to have you here. Now, for folks joining us and hoping to see the Darlington race, we're with you as well. We hope to see the race as well. But just on a programming note, if for some reason the race does not get going today, we will have a special grid live tomorrow, 30 minutes prior to the start of the race. But for sure, today we're going to be covering over all the motorsports news, do some Darlington pre-race as well. I know just because we're not sure about the weather, we know it is pretty wet. We could go ahead and start with a little bit of the big news, and that comes from the world of Formula One. With the world of Formula One, we all know about Monaco. This year is not taking place due to what's going on with the COVID-19 situation. But definitely one of the big things is next year we're looking at potentially, well, in fact, it has been confirmed that Monaco will take place 1 week earlier. So this means if there's a Formula One driver out there looking to do the Indianapolis 500 and the Monaco Grand Prix, they're going to be able to do this. When this news broke out, Kobe, what was your reaction to it?
I was like, wow, it's definitely a change in comparison to what I've been used to growing up. Since I was a little kid, I always loved the Memorial Day tradition. As people always say, you have breakfast in Monaco, lunch at Indy, and dinner in Charlotte. I always look forward to waking up very early on Memorial Day Sunday, and I start my day off eating my breakfast, watching the Monaco Grand Prix, and then getting my lunch to watch the Indy 500, and then dinner time, sit back for a long Coca-Cola 600. So it's definitely going to be different to see the tradition change, and with Monaco moving up a week, and then the Indy 500 and the Coke 600 staying on Memorial Day weekend. It's definitely going to open up the door for any potential active Formula One drivers to come over and run the greatest spectacle in racing. I think if we can, I think it would be a wonderful change if we can get some drivers currently active on the Formula One grid to come over, and I think that it would be great for the motorsports world in general. Because speaking hypothetically here, imagine Aaron McLaren SP enters 4 cars for the 2021 Indianapolis 500, assuming they keep Pato O'Ward and Oliver Askew as their full-time drivers. Imagine the buzz around the motorsports world if they announced two entries for their 2021 Formula One lineup of Lando Norris and Daniel Ricciardo. That would be an absolutely exciting thing for the entire world, and and it would definitely put IndyCar on the map for the time being.
It would. This would definitely be something that could elevate. Of course, as you mentioned, McLaren with Mitch Peterson, they already got a presence. One of the big news has been coming out the last couple of weeks with the budget cap that Formula One is looking at. Ferrari, their team principal, made news by saying we might look at World Endurance Championship, WEC, and IndyCar Championship. Now, of course, right away, there's now been more speculation, especially since there has been reports of Roger Penske, owner of IndyCar, Indianapolis Motor Speedway, Mark Miles, and the governor of Indiana traveling to Italy. What would it mean for IndyCar if we were to see Ferrari enter in the IndyCar series?
That would be mega for the entire NTT IndyCar series overall to get a global giant like Ferrari in the sport. I know right now the engine suppliers, they currently have Honda and Chevrolet, and adding Ferrari to the mix, that would be huge. Ferrari is one of the most successful manufacturers of all time and one of the more recognizable manufacturers, and being able, if Ferrari decides to join IndyCar, that would be a great thing for the entire series, because Ferrari obviously has a great history in Formula One and sports car racing, and a brief history in IndyCar from back in the day, and been able to get another a Scuderia Ferrari IndyCar program would definitely go a long way towards putting the series on a much larger stage than it currently already is.
Definitely, especially since we already know the Indianapolis 500 is the single largest day event in the United States. Rating wise, we know the Indy 500 has been beaten by the Daytona 500 lately, but now that you have Ferrari looking at entering in, this could be something where it would really promote Indy cars, the Indianapolis 500 on a much bigger international scale as well. So definitely, this is something I know everyone, especially IndyCar fans, are really looking forward to. I know one of the big questions a lot of folks have is we all assumed Ferrari's going to have a factory car there, factory back effort. Do you see them potentially having it where they're going to have some teams with Ferrari engines?
Yes, I think it's certainly possible down the road in the future, because with the Formula One budget cap rules, they need Ferrari's looking at other racing programs around the world, and also IndyCar is going to be switching to hybrid power soon, and that's very intriguing, because the Formula One teams, they're very familiar with the hybrid technology, and in general, I think Ferrari may also be interested with the new prototype rules, because you have the Le Mans hypercar and the Le Mans Daytona H from IMSA. They're going to be able to race for overall wins in the IMSA WeatherTech Sports Car Championship and the FIA World Endurance Championship as well. And this is something that's been a long time coming in the sports car racing world, where you can take a prototype and be able to contend for the overall wins of the Rolex 24 at Daytona, the Mobil 112 Hours of Sebring, the 6 hours of Spa, or the granddaddy of them all, the 24 hours of Le Mans.
Yes, and definitely one of the things I know we all know Fernando Alonso, he's been trying to go for the Triple Crown.
Mhm.
I don't know if it's just me or does it appear like we're now starting to see where, especially during this wave of e-races, we've seen people like Lando Norris, Scott McLaughlin do not only their series e-race, but also participate in other series. Lando Norris has done everything from the supercars to IndyCar. McLaughlin done, of course, all the Indy cars as well. Do you think we're sort of entering an era where maybe we'll start seeing drivers from like one particular series start participating in events across different series?
While I'm not sure if that's going to happen yet on a large scale, I really think that the esports stuff is really going to get the ball rolling with a lot of things, because before the shutdown happened, Jimmy Johnson was at the Air McLaren SP shop, and because once he retires from full-time NASCAR Cup Series competition, he plans to run some select IndyCar races with the McLaren operation over there on the road and street courses, and and in general, it seems like like back when you look at history back in the day, you had like the AJ Foyts running the Indy 500 and dominating IndyCar. Then you had AJ Foyt on the dirt as well, and then he come over and run some NASCAR races like the Daytona 500, and Mario Andretti as well, who raced in Formula One, IndyCar, and sports cars, and also raced in NASCAR as well. Like those were the good old days when drivers would literally get behind the wheel and drive any type of race car from any discipline. And for a while that went quiet. And then when Fernando Alonso came over here to run with the McLaren Andretti effort, that kind of restarted the conversation about crossovers, because I remember they were so shocked to see the two-time Formula One world champion give up the Monaco Grand Prix to come over here and have a chance to compete in the Indy 500 after having zero oval experience prior to that. And Alonso came over here and he proved that you can do it. And Alonso did it well until his engine expired over there at McLaren Andretti at the time. And as we know, it didn't really go well for Alonso last year with the McLaren racing only effort, and and he ended up getting bumped from the field, and then you looked at the esports stuff as you mentioned. Yeah, had Lando Norris come run with the IndyCar guys, and he did really well. And when Lando was asked if he loved to race an IndyCar in the future, he said that's something that he would like to do someday after he accomplishes everything that he wants to accomplish in the Formula One world. And it would not surprise me if we start to see a few more crossovers as well as Scott McLaughlin. It looks like he's going to be leaving supercars competition soon and moving to IndyCar full time, and it's just going to be interesting to watch and see if the esports stuff and influence from Alonso running the Indy 500 a couple of years ago for the first time. It's going to be interesting to watch and see if it's going to lead to some real life crossovers, because in my opinion, the virtual crossovers, it was like really fun to watch. And that's one of the things I wish that the NASCAR iRacing Pro Invitational Series could have done. Invite Lando Norris to come run with the top stock car drivers in the world virtually, or invite Scott McLaughlin, Joseph Newgarden, Connor Daly, those guys. I felt like that was an opportunity missed with the virtual NASCAR series.
Yeah, definitely was interesting how NASCAR, the virtual series, didn't had any other drivers outside NASCAR Cup drivers. And definitely we saw that crossover with Indy cars. I know the supercars, they even did races of supercars at Charlotte Motor Speedway in the iRacing Oval, the Daytona Road Course. They had a really diverse amount of tracks, and they even had Max Verstappen from F1. I know all this talk about all the different drivers from all the different series. Of course, one of the big things, the grid ranking was updated since this was the second event to take place since the pretty much the start of the grid ranking season. Of course, April 5th, Scott McLaughlin and Jamie Whincup, they still lead. They have only run two races so far in the Supercar Series, so no change there. The only changes were from the NASCAR race. With the NASCAR race, we saw Joey Logano finishing off the Saudi top 10. He dropped back, while Kevin Harvick really gained a lot of spots. He is one of pretty much the only drivers to have a top 10 in every single race in the Cup Series. Here is the rest of the grid ranking as you can see on the screen. The big thing to keep in mind, Formula One, IndyCar, and MotoGP has not run or completed two events yet. So once they complete two races, then we'll see those drivers be scored in the grid ranking. I know when it comes to the grid ranking, this is the third season overall. One of the big surprises, of course, is Kevin Harvick. Now today, Kevin Harvick, he is starting 20th after winning on Sunday. How do you see Kevin Harvick's performance today?
Well, once the race gets going, after the track gets dry and Mother Nature decides that we've had enough rain, I think Kevin Harvick is definitely going to be a contender again. He proved on Sunday afternoon that Stewart Haas Racing built the very fast number 4 Ford Mustang, and the team was prepared to get the job done. And I think that the number 4 car is going to definitely be one of the contenders for the win as well. I also think that you're going to see the Hendrick cars flex their muscles as well. Jimmy Johnson and William Byron will definitely want redemption after what happened in the last race, and I think that they'll be hungry to start moving back in the right direction after their unfortunate circumstances that happened on Sunday.
Indeed, yeah, definitely. We're going to see what happened with those drivers as well, and especially if any other drivers. I know we got some drivers up there that are just right on the border of trying to get into the grid ranking. Of course, the grid ranking displays the top 5 drivers from each series. Another bigger series news, of course, is definitely when it comes to the Grid World Motorsport League. The Grid World Motorsport League this year is going to be a super series going from 2020 to 2021 due to all the scheduling changes from the current pandemic. Right now, it's mostly NASCAR drivers. That's because right now, the Grid World Motorsport League requires that a driver completes 5 races or more. That's why we have a couple Xfinity race car drivers in there because they've done both Xfinity and Cup Series. Of course, once the series does keep going and then we see more races throughout the year, we'll see the Grid World Motorsport League update. You can follow them on Twitter at grid_WML and the hashtag gridWML. Now, one of the big stories, of course, we're going to be following today in the NASCAR race is definitely what happens with the weather. I know it looks like it's still very iffy. So once again, for everyone that has just joined us, if the rain rain does prevail and there's no race, and we'll have a special grid live tomorrow, 30 minutes before the events start. I know one of the big things we're all seeing some of the benefits from Sunday's race. NASCAR made the Wall Street Journal cover front page. A lot of praise for how they handled it. Overall, do you feel this was a big win for NASCAR and a model of how other sports could get it done?
Yes, absolutely. And according to Adam Stern, who's a well-respected motorsports journalist, the deputy commissioner of the NBA, Mark Tatum, praised NASCAR for being bold and being first, and that they were rooting for NASCAR, and that's coming straight from the NBA, which is great to have, which is great for NASCAR to have support from another major sporting organization like the NBA, and I think NASCAR put in a great policy to have social distancing and require everyone to wear masks in order to prevent any type of transmission if someone is sick and not showing any symptoms. And I think NASCAR is just doing the best that they can to get cash flowing again, and to make sure that all of the teams are healthy and we're not at risk of losing anyone because of the loss of money during the shutdown.
Yeah, it's been pretty good to see that we haven't seen any teams announce any public struggles or any financial hardship. We know they are out there, but definitely we saw 40 cars take the green flag. It sounds like the Busch Xfinity Series was about to get going yesterday, but the rain just kept coming, and we'll see what happens tonight with the weather as well. Now, on the topic of teams going, one of the big news that came out from the Supercar Series was Will Davison and 23 Red Racing are essentially done for the year. They lost their sponsor, Milwaukee Tools of Australia. With that loss, they went ahead and made a public announcement that they were done. They were not coming back for the remainder of the season. Of course, this could be very significant when it comes to the grid ranking, that we might have one less team out there. There is still word that James Courtney might return back with a team, keeping it at a full 24. I know when it comes to Australian supercars, they also had issues with their sponsors, Virgin Australia, looking at reorganizing because of the epic pandemic. When it comes to some of the things we're seeing from the supercars, do you think this is something that fans are sort of worried about when it comes to IndyCar, NASCAR? And do you think it's just since it is a smaller scale down there of the economy and everything that we're seeing some of these things, such as Will Davison out of a ride?
Yes, yes. Honestly, I think this is something that the entire motorsports community should worry about. Some are obviously going to be more affected than others, and we've all been affected by this global pandemic in some way or another. And for the race teams, some of them will be fine, and others are going to be severely affected. As you see, Will Davidson been out of a ride, and with the loss of sponsorship and all of that, and that's just a real unfortunate situation, and that's just like that's just what was those are the consequences of what's going on right now, and unfortunately all of those things are totally out of your control, and you just have to do the best that you can during this time.
Yeah, it's really unfortunate seeing Will Davison out right. He is in the grid ranking right now since he has a couple top fives already this season. I know one of the big things for that series, it has really seemed to grown quite a lot, especially with the internet. They've been having a good amount of people subscribing to their online subscription, which is also offered through F1, MotoGP as well. So they're trying to get out there and get especially exposure for their teams and their sponsors. Of course, definitely we know their return race is scheduled to be take place in June in Sydney. We'll see what happens with that. Now, one of the big things, of course, June is supposedly the month where we'll see the return of Formula One. The big thing that came out recently was the British government say that they're going to will continue imposing the 14-day self-quarantine, which has put the British Grand Prix in doubt, especially since they were looking at a double race weekend out in Silverstone. Surprisingly, Hockenheim, which was left out of the original calendar, is now in talks about hosting events and taking place. Are you surprised about Hockenheim going from no race in 2020 to possibly two races this year?
Well, if you told me that at the very beginning of the year before the pandemic struck, I would be very surprised. But given what's going on now, I'm actually not surprised at all that we can see Hockenheim return to the Formula One schedule, because at this point you have to look at all of the Grade One, the FIA Grade One circuits all around the world and see which ones you could potentially use given the current situation. And Formula One, they would be like really smart to make use of this situation and try to fill in the calendar the best way they can, because I know Formula One is trying to get as many races as they possibly can in the schedule, and I saw that they were trying to complete the season around mid-December, and they're gonna have special guidelines in place to protect the teams and the drivers and everybody at the track, and and they're gonna have to work very hard to try to come up with a solid concrete schedule, because it's currently a fluid situation over there.
It is definitely very fluid. I know it's been just something else, just seeing all the different changes to the schedule, including now looking at potentially races in December. Of course, we don't know anything about what's going to happen with this virus and come in the fall. Some folks are concerned it could flare up. This could definitely affect seasons such as Formula One or NASCAR, which are still looking at a longer race season. One of the big things, of course, is going to be really interesting to see when it comes to fall and planning if we're going to continue seeing more changes to the upcoming season. Now, I know one of the big things, of course, we're still looking at and evaluating the weather at Darlington. It seems like now there's still hope for a race. So, in case we do have a race, we have to do our pick of winners for fans watching. Definitely use the hashtag grid tonight and put there who you think is going to win. Or if you're watching on YouTube or Periscope, Twitter, be sure to type in your picks. We'll love to feature, especially if you're correct. I know Kobe started last week, so I'll go first this week. I'm going to go with Joey Logano for my pick a winner for the NASCAR race. I feel since he's starting in the top 10, he has run good in Darlington. He didn't seem to do too well yesterday, but he is going to start up there. They have a lot of notes, especially from the Southern 500, and that's going to be my pick for the Darlington race. How about you?
I'm going with William Byron. The iRacing Whiz Kid is going to get his first NASCAR Cup Series victory by taming the Lady in Black.
That'll be really interesting to see if William Byron could do it. I know, especially for a first career win at the Lady in Black, the track too tough to tame. That's going to be really something else. Now, one of the last follow-up stories we're going to have is Formula E. Of course, Formula E, they have the support series, the Jaguar I-Pace series, and they're going to essentially close up at the end of the 2020 season. Do you think this is a little bit of a turnaround from the momentum Formula E seems to have, or do you think this was just something where it just never seemed to catch on, considering that they had 12 cars last year and they dropped down to 10 this year?
Yeah, probably that right there. Well, I commend Formula E for trying something new, as electric racing is still brand new to the motorsports world, something that we're still getting used to. And although I didn't personally watch any of those, I didn't watch any of those races in the series that they're canceling, but but in today's day and age, you have to take risks sometimes, and you have to see what works and what doesn't. And unfortunately, that was a series that just didn't work out for Formula E, and that's okay because they can push forward, and they have the Extreme E series coming up. And American team Chip Ganassi Racing just announced that they're going to do an Extreme E program, and it should be interesting to follow that series to see if that's more successful than the Jaguar series.
You do bring up a good point about the Extreme E, the news from Chip Ganassi, and I believe even Andretti Allsport also announced that they were looking into participating in the Extreme E series as well. It's one of those things where it seems like, especially, it was good to see Jaguar make this effort. I know a lot of folks been concerned about their finances, especially prior to what's going on with the pandemic. One of the big things, of course, is going to be seeing what's going to happen with Formula E in the remaining of the season, because New York, that race is not going to happen in Brooklyn. London,
Mhm.
that race is not going to happen. So they have scheduled right now one race in Berlin, which could be a big factor in the grid ranking right now. Do you see Formula E looking at doing that last race and calling it a season, or do you think right now management is looking at everything possible to add in one or two additional races?
I would hope that Formula E management would look into trying to get as many races as possible to make up for what's going on. I understand that Formula E primarily races at street courses, but at this point, I'd like to see them like go to like a permanent road course and or maybe like a shorter version of a permanent road course and try to see if they can get some extra races in because it just wouldn't feel right for them to do one more Formula E race and call it a season. I feel like that the other drivers that are contending for the championship should be able to get a more fair shot to win the title instead of be like just one more race this season and we're done. That just doesn't seem fair at all to the entire Formula E paddock to just race one more time and be like we're done.
You hit a good point, especially, and I agree with you. It would be great to see Formula E do essentially another race, but not just at a street course, but at a permanent road course. I know one of the big things Formula E talks about is doing races at urban city centers. The big thing, of course, is seeing if that could happen. There's not a whole lot of road courses, of course, up the road from where I'm at, Portland International Raceway is within the city limits. That could always be a good place, but that'll be something where we'll see what happens. Now, I know, of course, Formula E, one of the big powerhouses there is Audi. Earlier, we heard about the situation with DTM and Audi. I know that's been pretty big news about 3 or 4 weeks ago. Kobe, when you heard that news, what was the first thing you thought of, especially with the situation at DTM and what Audi is doing?
The first thought that comes to my mind is DTM is in serious trouble. I have no idea how DTM can recover from the Audi situation. As you know, they tried to bring in Aston Martin, that didn't work out, and then Mercedes pulled out. Now we're gonna have Audi pulling out, and only one left. We're gonna have BMW, and we can't possibly ask BMW to to create a full grid because that would be too much money for them to spend, and it would probably be nearly impossible for BMW to support the entire DTM series. And Audi withdrawing from DTM, the German Touring Car Championship, that was a massive blow to the entire series. And it was just very unfortunate to hear the news that Audi is going to be withdrawn at the end of the season because I'm not sure what the future of DTM is. DTM has been a well respected championship for so many years, and if it was able to shut down at soon or like whenever the season ends, that would be a massive blow to the motorsports community because DTM is a well respected championship on the world stage.
I agree. DTM has a long history. Audi heading out, I know that was huge, and especially what you said. A lot of folks saw it as just like a huge blow to the series and wondering how it will recover. A lot of folks also have mentioned too, they see this as Audi trying to promote a more green image as well and focus especially on when it comes to electric cars and some of the technology advancements with that. All right, we're about at race time. I know it's about a couple of minutes. Of course, NASCAR is going to be running today. We'll see what happens with the rain. If there is no racing today, we will have a special Grid Live tomorrow for a more full, detailed pre-race show about the NASCAR race series. If so, we'll see what happens. Any final words before we head into the race tonight?
I hope Mother Nature plays nice, gives us a great window to at least make it to halfway, so we can get the race in, or otherwise it'll be the second consecutive day in a row where we send everybody down to Darlington, South Carolina for nothing. They'll just have to load up and go home to the Charlotte, North Carolina area once again. Yeah, and hopefully we'll be able to see some racing tonight, if not all, and if not, we'll come back tomorrow and try again.
Yep, and they have announced as well too. Like it's going to be since if they can't get the racing today, and there was no Xfinity racing, it'll be 12 noon the Xfinity series, 7 p.m. the Cup series if we don't get it in today. So that will mean tentatively Grid Live will be at about 6:30 p.m. Eastern time. All right, well, folks, it's about race time. You excited about today's race? Assuming we
Yes, I
do
am.
it.
Yeah, I'll be even more excited if we actually get to race tonight.
All right. Me too. Folks, thank you for watching today. Kobe from the podiumfinish.net. Check out his website. You can also follow him on Twitter. And folks, be sure to visit gridranking.com. I'm Joe Samriego. Thank you for watching.